Hello, welcome, and sorry. Happy Friday, everybody. I'm glad I didn't have the chat to distract me today with the wrong wording on this one. But it is Friday. It is another episode of the Maple Bitcoin live stream. I'm Jor. I'm joined by my good friends Forrest, Rajat. And today we're talking about the 11 Bitcoin rules for building real wealth. So we should kick off today by saying apologies for being a little bit late here. Rajat was on a call with a Caspa guy doing a live debate that was supposed to be an hour, but turned into 2 hours. What was your main takeaway with that, Rajat?
It was interesting. So I'm surprisingly, I think that Caspa could have a use case, but it's not as money.
Okay, that's interesting.
I think it could be used for other things. Maybe something like, I don't know, text messaging. I mean, well, maybe that, I don't know, but that's the thing that he could convince me of. On his side, though, I mean, he knew more about Caspa or about money than I expected. Props to him for showing up and doing his due diligence, putting in the time. So I do respect him as a person. I just don't agree with what he says about Caspa, right? Like he's probably a great person himself, right? Maybe he just went down the wrong rabbit hole, at least in my opinion. Maybe who knows? Maybe our channel is built on the wrong foundation here. Maybe we're going down the wrong rabbit hole, but I don't think so.
Highly unlikely.
Maybe we need to be a Maple Caspa.
I think I might leave if we change that.
Okay, well, we're going to have a fun show today. It is going to be an abbreviated version, actually. We usually run these for about 2 hours with some time at the end for Q&A, but we're actually going to cut this one a little bit short, and we're going to jump over to a new show we're doing called the Maple Bitcoin Happy Hour, which is going to be exclusively for our school community. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about that throughout the show. But anyways, if you're in the chat, say hello. Let us know where you're watching from. And if you do have any questions, just because of the time constraint today, we're probably going to only take questions that are super chats or zaps. So we're on YouTube, Rumble, and Zapstream today. And so if you do have a question that you want addressed, you can either do that, like I just mentioned, or you can show up to the happy hour today, the very first happy hour, Maple Bitcoin Happy Hour. So today we're going to be talking about the 11 Bitcoin rules for building real wealth. This is actually something that came from Rajat's channel. About 6 months ago, we did a really good video on this. And so we got a list here. We're going to go through them one by one, and we're going to give our own takes on it, expand if we need to, and maybe add a few more in there at the end. So while I'm kind of getting everything together here, do you guys want to start off with number one here, which is buy Bitcoin with any extra fiat? Rajat, kick it off. You're the guy. You're the author of this.
So the way that I see it, Bitcoin's just a savings account, right? It's just a way for you to save for the future, to build your. It's the way that I see it. Bitcoin is almost like it's like you're hiring an employee to work for you and to make money for you, right? Your Bitcoin is basically working for you in this case. So if you have any extra cash, if you just have it sitting in a bank account, it's not really doing anything for you. What I recommend is buying Bitcoin with it because it's the best savings tool. It's the only thing that will outperform literally everything else at this point. So if you have extra fiat, either you keep it in the melting ice cube of a system that we have today, or you buy Bitcoin. And I think that buying Bitcoin is the best solution there.
Yeah, the whole world is actually working for you when you own Bitcoin because everything else is getting cheaper to make and manufacture and create. And Bitcoin is money. Bitcoin is sound money. So it raises in purchasing power because of its scarcity, because of the technology of it, right? Because of everybody needs money and everybody converges on one best money. So yeah, it's just exactly that. You know, it's savings technology. And I would say that's why, is because everything in the world is working to become more efficient. And because of Bitcoin's scarcity, it makes it more and more valuable over time.
Yeah, I think that's probably I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of misconceptions out there in Bitcoin. But to me, one of the biggest ones is people look at this thing like an investment or, something they can put some cash into, and they might buy it low at 120K. And then when it gets to 150K, they're going to cash out and take some profits off the table. And that's just not what it is. It's not something that you need to sell a bunch of assets to buy. I mean, you should. But really, we did a video about this yesterday talking about the Barstool guys who were having a conversation about this. And it was like, it's not something that you need to time. It's not something that you're going to buy low and sell high. It's something that you just take whatever value you add to the world. You take your profits, your extra fiat, as Rajat called it here, and you just buy Bitcoin, and you just keep doing that over and over and over again. And, you know, after a couple of years, you're going to have a decent balance, but after 10 years, you're going to be laughing. And it's not something that you need to eat craft dinner every day, live under a bridge, you know, sell all your furniture. It's just take what you have and save it in that. So I think that was a really good way to put it, Rajat.
Yeah, even if you have like an extra few dollars, that's perfectly fine. I think that's more than enough.
Yeah, you can always buy fractions of it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the unique thing of where we are right now is like, you can still take $10 right now of fiat. And in Canada, you can get like, what would it be? 6,000 sats for that. And in America, it'd be probably 10,000 sats for that. But I mean, one day it's going to be 1-to-1. And then one day it's going to be, you got to pay more dollars to get one sat. And it's, you know, it's coming. It's inevitable in our eyes anyways, in my mind. So that's what you do. Even if it is just 10 or 15 or $20, that's not the point here. It's just the fact that you're doing it consistently and you're letting that compound over time. Yeah. Number 2 here is sell your Bitcoin when you need fiat. So one of the common themes in Bitcoin is never sell your Bitcoin, but Rajat disagrees with that.
So I would say in general, if you sell your Bitcoin, you're going to take the more secure route where you give away your Bitcoin, of course, you redistribute the wealth. And of course, you're going to have to deal with the opportunity cost, potentially losing the Bitcoin that you have and losing out on the future returns. But I mean, that's the way that I see it. I think it's more of a moral thing, right? So if you want to pay somebody for their value, then pay them with value, right? But over time, I mean, the way that I've thought of this over time is that if people don't want to accept Bitcoin, then you can't force them, right? If they want you to use your credit card, then use your credit card, right? Like if you go to Walmart, you can't force them to take Bitcoin because they're not at that point yet. So with fiat, most people are still in that fiat mindset. People still see fiat, and because of that, they're willing to accept fiat. And if that's what people are willing to accept, that's perfectly fine. If you can convince people to accept Bitcoin, I think you're helping them, if anything.
Oh, big time. Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, I kind of feel bad giving people fiat. You know, I feel bad using my credit card, right? Like that credit card company is profiting from that. It's a toll booth company. And that cost of using the credit card goes on to the prices of everything. And, you know, the business is less profitable because of it. Like it's not a peer-to-peer transaction, that it has a lot of friction between it. And I'm giving that person something that I think is completely worthless. But they're willing to accept it, right? They're willing to accept fiat still. So, you know, that is what it is, right? And like Rajat said, you can't convince everybody to accept Bitcoin, but I think over time, that's just going to become more and more inevitable.
Yeah, I think if you look at Bitcoin, kind of this one ties in really well with number 1, in my opinion. It's like, that's all it is. It's a savings account, which means that if you buy Bitcoin, it doesn't need to be there forever. You don't need to go through hardships just so you don't have to sell your Bitcoin. Like, we're only around for so long. The only thing more precious than Bitcoin or scarce than Bitcoin is our time. And so for me, I buy and sell Bitcoin all the time. And the reason why I do that is because any money I make every month or anytime I get paid by somebody, I put that into Bitcoin. So when you're doing that, you're obviously going to have to sell some Bitcoin. So I have no issues with that. It's kind of what these guys were referring to there is like, it doesn't really matter how you pay somebody. It's just, you're sending them value. It doesn't matter how you spend it. It's what you spend it on, you know, good things or crap, which is another rule we're going to get here. It's what you spend it on and how you store it. It doesn't really matter how you pay somebody. It could be fiat, it could be Bitcoin, it could be Caspa, it could be anything. The point is you're sending them value. And so if you think about it that way, it's like, yeah, if you're storing your time and energy in Bitcoin, then you're going to have to sell it sometime. And I sell Bitcoin all the time. The one thing I would say about that, though, is that if you are somebody who's getting a little bit further away from the fiat rails and joining kind of a Bitcoin standard, good practice, just in terms of us keeping the Bitcoin, the 70% of Bitcoin that we hold today, is make sure you sell it to somebody else. Don't sell it back to the exchanges, because that's going to be sucked up by Saylor and Larry Fink and the Trumps. We want to keep this stuff. We have 70% of it right now. Let's just send it to each other. There's always going to be some person in your network that's going to be looking to buy some Bitcoin. So if you do need to sell, make sure it's a peer-to-peer.
And there's also potential tax consequences of selling too, which could not be the right answer potentially, but it's sort of a nuance. That's more of a nuanced conversation that, you know, these rules are maybe a little more, or that rule maybe is a little more general, I would say.
Yeah, it depends on where you are, right? Like
Yeah.
in certain countries, there's no capital gains taxes, but in other countries, there's a lot of capital gains taxes. So over time, like because we're in Canada, I've thought more about borrowing against your Bitcoin, right? You don't have to pay the taxes first of all.
Yeah.
Secondly, you can keep your collateral with a trusted institution. The way that I see it, I was actually speaking with one of my friends. He was telling me how you can almost think of it as like a diversified way to store your Bitcoin, right? So if somebody, let's say for example, you have all of your Bitcoin in one wallet and it's all in your house. If somebody walks in, they can take all your Bitcoin, right? But if you have your Bitcoin locked up with some kind of entity, you have the ETFs. It's a way to diversify. Maybe it's not the best way for everybody to go. Maybe most people don't want to do that, and that's perfectly fine. But the way that I see it, if somebody walks into your house, they can't get that Bitcoin.
It's true. Yeah, good point. You know, like it's diversification within your how you custody it, and there's potential benefit of, you know, using that fiat for something else or buying more Bitcoin with the fiat. There's again, yeah, the able to access some value out of your Bitcoin without a tax consequence. I mean, there is some benefit potentially to loans against your Bitcoin in some cases. You know, very general. Again, you know, definitely not financial advice.
Which brings us to rule number 3, which is Rajat. I don't know if you're going to agree with this anymore. Don't borrow against your Bitcoin.
Yeah, I don't. I think if you actually, I do kind of agree with it. Let's say, for example, if you want to borrow against a small amount, that's fine, but don't borrow against your entire stack. That's definitely key, because if you borrow against your
Yes.
entire stack, number one, you're risking the entire stack. You're giving it to someone else. They hold on to it and they can potentially take it from you. But I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong, right? And now I believe that like if you can, or if you really need money and you don't have a credit card, you don't have if you want to take on a loan to like start a business or something, maybe take on a loan against 5% of your stack, maybe even less if possible, just to keep yourself as secure as possible.
Yeah, I think that's what I would say on it too. Is like, I think you nailed it. There's like, don't do your full stack. I wouldn't even recommend like a half stack. That seems really extreme to me. Unless you're super risky and, you know, super certain about this stuff. But it's like, the reason why I wouldn't lend against my whole stack is because if something were to happen to the price of Bitcoin, and it does, there's going to be different things along the way where the price of Bitcoin just crashes. There's some sort of event that might happen over the weekend and no other markets are open. All that volatility then goes into Bitcoin, and that leads to some really big movements upwards and some really big movements downwards. And so you don't want to get caught with your pants down there, I think is the point, because if you had 100% of your Bitcoin leveraged and all of a sudden your LTV ratio starts going up, you have nothing to replenish that and to bump that up. And you could get liquidated if you don't have the Bitcoin or the ability to, you know, get back on side with your LTV ratio there.
I think Bitcoin Reply Girl's answer there was really great. Loans against your Bitcoin versus take a loan for your living expenses. I would personally say get a line of credit. If you can avoid that Bitcoin loan, if you can avoid giving up your Bitcoin, exactly what she said, it doesn't put your Bitcoin up for collateral. So if you can't pay it back, they can't take your Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Those, from what I know, those are they're non-recourse loans, right? So that means that they can't do anything. They can't take your Bitcoin from you, and they just take the hit. It hits your credit, though, of course.
Yeah, it hits your credit. Yeah, so it's a character-based loan, so it's going to affect your credit more than anything else. Obviously, if you're taking a loan against your Bitcoin, it's secured by that Bitcoin. So yes, there's the potential for that. If you can take character-based loans, I mean, it depends on a couple different things. I would say interest rate, duration, and size. Maybe you don't qualify for very much of a character-based loan, but you have a bunch of Bitcoin. You know, so it really depends again on individual situations.
You guys kind of talked about this last week, didn't you? The character-based stuff. That was it Sunny?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was kind of his recommendation there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's been very successful with that. I think he's taken out like 40K of character-based loans through credit cards and just keeps rolling them onto zero balance transfer loans. It's crazy what that guy's done.
It's just a smart way to do it.
It's amazing. Yeah.
I think that the whole, the bigger picture here though is that I'd say the majority of people won't have access to that. Like the average person won't be able to do that, whether they have bad credit, they don't have a great character, they had some stupid things happen in the past.
Sure.
So I think that that's like if you have the ability to do that, I think that makes a lot of sense. But the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is that they don't care what your credit score is. Like you put up your Bitcoin, it doesn't matter what you did 10 or 15 years ago in your past, how many payments you missed along the way. It's like, if you have Bitcoin, that's your collateral, that's your credit score right there. So I think it's a good option for people if they do need that without having to sell their Bitcoin. I think that lending against their Bitcoin is actually a decent idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 4 here is increase your income to avoid selling. So both these, number 3 and 4, I mean, Rajat said don't borrow against it, but we kind of changed that a little bit to be a small, a small amount that you can, it's not going to affect you too much. But these both, I think, tie into the ability to not have to sell your Bitcoin. Taking out a loan against your Bitcoin means you don't have to sell that Bitcoin. Increase your income to avoid selling your Bitcoin. That's kind of what you want to do here. There's a lot of people out there who get so wrapped up in like the taxes of Bitcoin, but it's like, if you do this the right way, if you have a good strategy in place, you probably will never have to pay tax on your Bitcoin. I feel like that's such a huge hurdle for people, which is weird in itself. Is like, if you're paying tax on it, that means you made the right decision. But also it holds them back because there's so much uncertainty. It's like, if you do this right, you don't have to pay taxes on it. And that's one of the things that this is: increase your income to avoid selling it.
Yeah. If
Absolutely.
you can avoid selling it, if you can get that cash flow and you don't have to sell it, then you don't have to basically prevent the compounding for the rest of your life. Right. So if you have Bitcoin, you have to stocked away and it doesn't move. You just leave it there and you use it to store value for the future. I think that eventually that Bitcoin is going to be so valuable and you're actually contributing to that speculative attack on fiat. I think eventually that Bitcoin is going to be so valuable that you're not going to have to sell a large chunk of it to do the exact same things over time. So essentially you're bringing your future consumption to the present and you're using your Bitcoin to delay gratification.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting one with so when people are thinking through this stuff, the reason why I like that, what Rajat said there, and number 4 here is like, if you can, again, this is all about strategy and planning. And I know it's one thing to just buy Bitcoin and like get all excited that the price is going up, but there are a lot of ways to optimize this and do it strategically. And one thing that I think about all the time is like, let's say you started buying Bitcoin back in 2020, 2021, sometime in that zone where it was like $15,000. And that's why it's so important to like have a good wrap of your Bitcoin, your UTXOs, you label them effectively. Because realistically, you might not ever have to sell that Bitcoin and pay a bunch of taxes on that. Whereas if you're earning fiat and you're converting it to Bitcoin every month, and then you're having to sell that Bitcoin to buy things and pay for your life, there's not going to be a whole lot of tax implications there. Right? So it's like, because your cost base is from a couple weeks ago, unless it shot up huge, then you're probably not going to pay a whole lot of tax on it. So when you're thinking about this stuff, you want to increase your income, you want to add value, convert that into Bitcoin. And then you just kind of leave your old UTXOs, just leave them untouched. Don't worry about ever paying tax on those. Those are going to be handed down to your kids and their kids in the future. And I just think that that's the way that people should be thinking about this, kind of like a first in, first out. You save in Bitcoin and then you spend that Bitcoin. You don't touch the old stuff. Then you don't have to worry about taxes. Does that make sense?
Does that work though? I think
Yep.
Forrest, you were mentioning something about that. Is it based on your average price or something like that?
It depends on your jurisdiction. I believe in
jurisdiction.
Canada, it's an average rate of acquisition that they base it off of. But in the US, you can actually specifically pick which UTXO, or otherwise it's first in, first out, which is actually means that it's based off of the first Bitcoin you've purchased and you spend it. So it's actually the worst tax treatment unless you specify it. Yeah.
Oh, unless you specify it.
Unless you specify the UTXO. But that's, again, in the States, as far as my understanding. And in Canada, I believe it's an average cost of acquisition that they tax you on.
Oops.
Yeah. So not ideal in Canada.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Again, I'm not a tax professional, but
Yeah.
this is from my research. But I think that the tax laws are, they need They need changed for sure. And I personally, like, a lot of my stack, I'll just outlast the current laws. You know, there's going to be a time, I believe, where so many nations are competing for basically capital for people and high capital individuals, that they create really beneficial laws and for tax treatment. And so that's going to spread out across the world, right? These nations will compete basically to have the best tax treatment. I'll just wait till then.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that eventually the tax treatment is going to change, because it's just extremely difficult to track Bitcoin and tax it, right?
Oh, could you imagine?
Yeah.
Could you imagine trying to track all the Bitcoin you've ever bought and sent and spent and all that kind of stuff? Like, it would probably take me 2 decades to do.
If you DCA, especially, like some people DCA every hour. I've seen that before. People DCA literally every hour. Like, they buy a certain amount of Bitcoin so how do you figure out what the price is? I guess you have to have the entire history. It'll take you forever.
I think the only thing I would say about that is, when you think about AI and AI's capability, there might be the opportunity for AI to just like create an entire history based on just data you feed it, right? And be accurate.
It would be very similar to chain analysis, though, where it wouldn't be like for sure. It would just be based on probability
and assumptions. That's the thing with Bitcoin. A lot of times is it's all based on assumptions. If you send Bitcoin from one wallet to another, it's up to you to say if it's your wallet or somebody else's, and then it's up to somebody else to assume whether you're telling the truth or not, or, you know, all sorts of things. It basically comes down to, a lot of times, with assumptions after you've moved it off of an exchange, that is.
Yeah, I subscribe to the same theory as Forrest there. I think that over time here, because you have to keep in mind that we're so early in this game, and I think that if you think about all the companies and everybody who's going to need Bitcoin, and there's just not enough Bitcoin for everybody. Like, that's the realistic take on it. There's not enough Bitcoin for everybody. And so what they're going to do, in my opinion, is they're going to have to implement these different laws and regulations that actually incentivize Bitcoiners to sell their Bitcoin. But when you think about it, like, we're kind of headed towards the perfect storm, because we're talking about lending here. And once there's more lending options, like when your local bank is offering a Bitcoin loan, which will come, you know, there's Ledn right now, there's Salt, somebody mentioned in the comments, but like, there's going to be thousands of these companies and not too far away. And so when you think about it that way, it's like, it's going to be impossible to get Bitcoin out of people's hands at that point. And so that's going to do a couple different things. It's going to drive the price up, for one, and they're going to get more and more desperate to try to part individuals from their sats. The 70%, I'm guessing they want to turn that into about 30%, but it's not going to happen because of lending and because of, you know, the network growing and people selling their Bitcoin peer-to-peer instead of back to the exchanges. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see them squirm.
Did you see that Aqua is going to implement lending? They posted a post on their Twitter, 8% rate.
Really?
On Aqua lending. Yeah.
Wow.
I think there's also a fee to like set it up, like an initiation fee as well. But so it probably is around more like 9% total, but pretty good.
Yeah, Aqua's, they also have a credit card that they're going to, I think it's the Dolphin card, where you can spend it non-KYC.
Insane.
That's a game changer. That's going to change so many things.
Yeah.
Wait, when do you guys think that the lending is going to show up for Aqua?
Not sure. Probably not for a little while.
James says, how do I get my Bitcoin out of negative return? I mean, we're thousands of dollars away from an all-time high. I don't know. Wait a week.
Wait a week. Yeah, there's not that many people that are not in profit with their Bitcoin. No, you know, it's probably 90 somewhat % of people that are in profit at this point, if you're a holder. Yeah, so just wait a little while, I would say.
Frank says, I have 1 Bitcoin. Is that enough for retirement? So I'm actually going to bypass a couple rules here. Forrest and I came up with a couple of our own. So I'm going to change this next one to be, don't ever tell anyone how much Bitcoin you have. That's my #1 rule in Bitcoin.
That's key.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. I think that it's one of the things that you can never undo. There's some sort of psychological thing that happens in somebody's brain when they hear something like how much money you make, or how much this was worth or how much Bitcoin you have. They'll never forget that. And all that's going to do is it's going to put a huge target on your back in the future. You know, it might not be this year or next year, but when Bitcoin gets to where we think it's going to go, people don't forget that, and they never will forget that. So just keep that to yourself. You don't need to tell anybody ever how much Bitcoin you have. Not even your bank. If you're going to the bank and getting a loan, they don't need to know your full stack. That's why management and organization is also important to get your UTXOs kind of under control for that.
And yeah, the reason I would say, just to expand on that, the reason not to tell people is it's just an added piece of information that would be helpful to somebody with criminal intentions. So it's not like something bad is going to happen today, tomorrow, or whatever. But yeah, as George said, people won't forget. Really, it'll last, the concept there. And you have one Bitcoin, that's going to end up being worth a lot in the future, and the future's uncertain. So it might not be the greatest having people know how much Bitcoin you have, just for a safety perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need to tell literally anyone, like maybe your spouse, but I would say that beyond that, just keep it to yourself.
One of the reasons, I guess, would be that if somebody let's say somebody knows exactly how much Bitcoin you have, if you tell them you have, let's say you tell them you have 10 Bitcoin, and they come to your house, or they get somebody to come to your house, like people are crazy, right? Like they get somebody to come to your house, and then you give them a wallet with like 500,000 Satoshis. At the time, maybe it's worth a lot of money, but they're going to want the 10 Bitcoin, right? They're not going to want 500,000 Satoshis. At that time, maybe that 500,000 Satoshis is worth 500 grand, right? But why wouldn't they want, what is it, $1 billion with your 10 Bitcoin?
Exactly. Yeah, and we have to keep this in mind. I think we have to set our expectations in the sense that, like, over these next couple of years, as Bitcoin goes from 100K to 1 million to 100 million, people are going to be mad at Bitcoiners. That's the reality. Like, I know we're trying to help. I know we're trying to better the world, but like, people are going to be pissed at Bitcoiners. And, I think that as the fiat dollar and the fiat world continues to implode, I think that it's going to get really dicey. Crime's going to keep going up. There's going to be a lot of bad things that happen. We're going to have to go through a really bumpy road here, I think, to get to the other side of this. And so you just don't have to do yourself any harm. You can just shut up, and that's just going to make a world of difference going into this future.
Yeah.
Number 5, I guess number 6 now. Number 5 was don't ever tell anyone how much Bitcoin you have. Number 6 is purchase price doesn't matter.
I like that. It's a sort of an absolute concept, but I would say if somebody wanted to be like more, specific with it, it's that purchase price doesn't matter very much. It matters very, very little. This is the new monetary network. This is the base layer of all financial products in the future. This is the store of value, which will absorb all the monetization from gold, real estate, bonds, everything else. And this is the foundation of all of that. So if you get in at 100,000, you get in at 110,000, this is going to make no difference. This asset is $2.3 trillion total market cap. That's absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things with the amount of dollars and wealth out there. So yeah, these minor differences in price at this point, especially, it makes no difference.
Agreed.
Yeah.
At some point, like whatever price you pay, at some point, eventually it's going to be a rounding error. It's going to, like, Bitcoin runs out at every price. I say this constantly. Eventually, you're going to see that there's nobody who's willing to sell Bitcoin to you under a certain level. So let's say, for example, right now, if you try to find somebody who's willing to sell you Bitcoin under 100K, it's probably gonna be very rare because they can just go to the market and they can sell it for 116K, right? So over time, every price Bitcoin will run out at every single price. There will eventually be a time when you don't see Bitcoin under $1 million anymore, right? So will it really matter to you whether you paid 121K versus 116K? No. Will it really matter to you if you paid 80K versus 75K? Not really. And plus, if you're dollar cost averaging over time and the price drops, take advantage of the drops. So you bring your average price down. So at the end of the day, the price doesn't really matter.
Yep. And I mean, it goes back to number one here, which is buy Bitcoin with extra fiat, right? When you have extra fiat, you buy Bitcoin. You don't look at the price. You just buy it because it's a way better way to store your energy. It's the world's best battery, as I like to say. And
I was gonna say something I like to think about is when you go to the gas station, it's not like you wait until gas drops to a certain price, right? Unless like you're in a really, really dire situation. You're not gonna wait for gas to drop 20% before you buy it. So I mean apply that to Bitcoin as well, right? You're using your Bitcoin to save. You're using it to save for your future. So just apply it to Bitcoin and I think you'll do very well in your day-to-day life and your finances in general.
yeah, I feel like there's going to be, well, I shouldn't say that. I know that there's a lot of people right now who are waiting for Bitcoin to crash, because we've gone up 100% in the last year. But people, I think, are missing the fact that we haven't really seen the big run up yet. And it'll probably crash, but I think it's going to crash to something higher than we're at today. Just my opinion on it. But yeah, it's just like there's too much stress, too much time spent worrying about this stuff, trying to time things like you're a financial expert. It's like, no, just be on the left side of the bell curve here. As soon as you have fiat, exchange it for Bitcoin. Like you're not, you're not anybody special. And that's a lesson for me too. But going back to the gas pumps there, Rajat, is there anything more fiat than somebody waiting in a Costco line for half an hour to save 5 cents on gas?
Yeah, that
Like
I
how
see that
little
all
do
the
they
time.
value their time?
It makes me think like, okay, you're gonna save maybe $3 if you like. That's what I do now. So if something is gonna take me like 3 hours to do, I think of it as okay, I can go make a video in that time instead of doing what I'm doing. I can educate the masses. I can make some money through the videos that I make, and I'd rather do that. I'd rather increase my income over, like at a certain point, decreasing your expenses doesn't work anymore.
Totally.
So you're saying hire somebody then?
Like a
Like
VA.
for the 3-hour task instead of you having to do it?
It depends on what it is, right? Like let's say for example, if it's like I'm spending time with my wife, then that's different.
Yeah.
That's priceless, right? But if I'm doing something like going to Costco to return something that's worth $5,
Yeah. Right.
doesn't really
Yep.
I'd rather throw it out.
Or sitting in line at Costco.
Or yeah, exactly. Or just like if I was to return something, I'd rather just go give it to Value Village, get it done
Yeah.
in like 10 minutes.
I think a good one is like an oil change, right? An oil change
Yeah.
is actually pretty easy to do. Like it doesn't take that much skill to do, but it takes a little bit of time. You got to wait for the oil to drip out. You got to go buy the oil, buy the filter, have the space, all this kind of stuff. Or you can go to one of these quick change places and it takes 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And yeah, it costs probably twice as much. Like you're saving some money, but you still have to go buy the oil and the filter and everything, right? So, but you're significantly saving a lot of time by doing something simple like that.
You also have to buy like a pump to lift your car. You have to buy all the equipment that like the things like wrenches and all that stuff, like the torque wrench. You have to figure out which filter. Like it'll probably take the first time you do it, it'll probably take you like 6-7 hours to do, just because you want to do it right.
Yeah, it could for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so that's through that's 6. So we should maybe take a little quick break here and just kind of talk about the recent change to the show here. So first of all, I know this says beside Rajat's head. I can't find the one that I have for Forrest's head.
I'll pretend to be Rajat today.
So we got a couple of people over on Zapstream. Josh is asking why no option in the Zapstream for zapping. I don't know. I figured we would be good to go on there. I'm not sure why nobody can zap on there right now, but you can zap the QR code there beside Forrest's head. That is our Maple Bitcoin treasury, our reserve. We don't have any sponsors on the show. We don't ever plan to. And so that's how we keep the lights on here. We got a couple different things, including our school community, which we're going to be hopping over to in about half an hour from now. So we're doing the first ever Maple Bitcoin happy hour, we're calling it. And so if you do want to join, I know there's quite a few people probably watching today who are already part of that community. But just in case you haven't joined yet, we're going to put the link here. It's pretty simple now. We don't need a huge link. It's just school.com/Maple Bitcoin. And so what that's going to look like is we're going to end the stream. We're going to take about a 5 or 10 minute intermission. And then we're going to hop over to our happy hour, which is going to be a private Q&A for school members. So there you go. You should be able to find it in the chat there. I'm going to put it in the Rumble as well.
Couple things I want to say about that is
Yep.
it's not just a Q&A where you're in the chat. This is going to be a Zoom call where you can actually turn your mic on, turn your camera on if you wanted, and ask us a question. All three of us, will, the best suited to answer will answer. Maybe we'll have different opinions and things. We'll have a discussion. We'll all learn from the questions asked by everybody. And there's also a 7-day free trial for school as well. So try it out. No commitment really needed. And you can see if there's we have a lot more than just this weekly call that we do here, the happy hour. There's also exclusive masterclasses, 2 of them. And I think a 3rd one coming real soon. Oh, 3 already. Okay. All an hour long and, packed full of value and really like intentionally built to provide value to people that watch them.
What were the topics on those ones?
One is about lending and borrowing against your Bitcoin. The other one is how to buy Bitcoin. And the other one is how to think about storing your Bitcoin.
Private key management.
Yeah, private key management. So you might think those are kind of basics, like especially the last 2, but we go over them in such depth that I think even a lot of people that are like intermediate at storing and buying Bitcoin might learn something from them. And the idea there is if you learn something from these, they're either it's gonna save you in a security practice way, or it's going to allow you to stack more sats. So yeah.
Yes. So we got a couple of zaps. Actually, we had one from yesterday. Somebody sent us 10,000 sats with no message attached to it. I'm just seeing that now. Somebody sent in 5,000 sats at 109, which was half an hour ago, with no message as well. And then we have 1,111 sats, 1111. So a live free zap. I think that was from Samantha. That's her favorite zap to send. So thank you to those who are supporting. Thank you to the people who have already joined the school community. And if you're already in the school community, you don't have to, but just let us know what your experience has been. Has it been valuable for you? Are you enjoying yourself? Are you learning anything? The chat in there is very active. I'm going to tell you that. It's a very active community. There's probably 10 or 15 posts every day of people talking about different topics, questions. So it's a really good place to learn. Kind of the whole idea here is like being a Bitcoiner in 2025 is a pretty lonely place. And so this gives you some sense of community. It gives you a network we think is going to be your greatest asset into the next decade. And then you get exclusive content. And once per week, a Maple Bitcoin happy hour following the live stream. So packed with value in there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the next one here. Moving on. Number 6, and I'm going to dedicate this one to Forrest, which is avoid altcoins. Forrest's channel is called Bitcoin Not Crypto. So steer clear of the altcoins.
They're a distraction. If you think about all the other things that we've talked about, you can't do that stuff with altcoins. It's all about timing. It's about hot potato with altcoins, and none of them are actually competing for the space that Bitcoin is competing for, which again is the base layer money. The ultimate store of value, the unit of account, just money, right? It's competing for money. And these altcoins are all, we can do this with it. We can do DeFi, we can do tokens, we can do meme coins. Those all might have some sort of market for them, but they are absolutely nowhere in the scope and size of money. And they are likely, there's a lot more ability for competition within there. There's a lot less switching costs. So there's a lot more real competition where there isn't in Bitcoin. And therefore you have to pick the winners out of them. And they are probably, and there's evidence to back this up, historical evidence to back this up. They will likely underperform Bitcoin, in not even really a long-term time horizon, like a medium-term time horizon. They have short periods of potential out returns, and again, then you have to sell them. You have to be an active person in these spaces with altcoins. It's a lot of work, and you're betting on probably vaporware, probably nothing, probably hype, and that's a very risky thing to do. And the risk reward metric of investing and buying these altcoins is not good, right? There's the low amount of reward for the high amount of risk. It's the absolute opposite with Bitcoin. There's a high amount of reward for a low amount of risk. So why even bother messing and being distracted by these altcoins?
Yeah, most of them are just trying to give you the same narrative over and over again. And I mean, it gets tiring over time. If you do the research once, it kind of shows you that, like, for some of them, you have to do a deeper dive. Like okay, so like something like XRP, it's very easy to figure out that it's not what you think it is,
Yeah.
right? But with something like Caspa, they have a very strong community of people who will try to convince you that it's gonna last forever. They'll do whatever they can.
And that it's better than Bitcoin, and they, that it solves the trilemma, and it doesn't. There's major trade-offs you have to make, and those trade-offs are in the fact of it being not nearly as secure and not nearly as decentralized, which in my opinion are the two most important parts of the trilemma. The other one being speed, right? And so I believe that the speed factor is solved with additional layers on the most secure, most decentralized network. And Caspa thinks that's, they just pretend. They're pretending that they're secure and decentralized.
I have a problem with that, right? The speed might be really good on speed. It might be really fast. But the thing is that time per transaction will always trend to zero. Like with Bitcoin, they're actively trying to make sure that the block time doesn't go to zero because of the difficulty adjustment. So with all these other cryptocurrencies, they're going to keep making their blocks come in faster and faster and faster. It'll take you 0.1 second, then it'll take you 0.01 second. That'll always trend to zero. Like it'll be as close to instantaneous as possible. But with Lightning, you can do the same thing, right? So even transaction fees, they'll tell you, oh, it's cheaper for fees. It trends to zero. Even Bitcoin's fees are trending to zero. Right? Like recently they decreased it by 90%, the minimum fee.
Yeah, in
everything
Bitcoin
trends to
terms.
zero. Yeah. So you're thinking that everything trends to zero, but this one coin that you're buying is not going to trend to zero? Maybe it doesn't, but what are the chances of that?
Yeah, that's my whole thing with it too. And I like the fact that, Rajat, you started the show today by saying, like, Caspa might have a use case for some things. And that's kind of how I see myself as well. Like, I know there's this whole toxic maximalist Bitcoiner, like, the memes and all that kind of stuff. And people are really proud to be that. And that's fine. That's not me though. I love Bitcoin. It's the only thing I buy. It's the only thing I save in. But like realistically in the future, if we move into a world where everybody's using this thing and you can swap in between, stable coins and Bitcoin and Caspa and whatever else, and your MicroStrategy shares, there's going to be use cases that Bitcoin just can't do, but that doesn't mean they're a better store of value. And so when I need to use those things in the future, whether that is Caspa for some use case, or whether that is Dogecoin, maybe there's a store that only accepts Dogecoin and I want to buy something there, I can just swap my Bitcoin into Doge at that time. I don't need to store my value in Doge waiting for that day where I actually need it. So that's how I think about these other altcoins, is like, maybe they do have some value. Maybe they have a use case that Bitcoin can't do, but they're not a better store of value. There's no asset on earth that's a better store of value than Bitcoin. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to store my time and energy in Bitcoin. And when I need a house, or when I need to use fiat, or when I need to use Dogecoin, I'm going to swap my Bitcoin for that when the time comes. So
I have a little bit of a different opinion on that, but it's fine. I just think that you're kind of mentioning there that maybe one of these use cases might be some sort of medium of exchange use case, right? If somebody only accepts Doge or something, but it's like, then they're just accepting the inferior asset of store of value. So it doesn't really make sense. Like they're doing something that is illogical by using that as a medium of exchange.
Well, maybe though, like my argument to that would be, let's say that their brand is built on Doge. Maybe there's a Doge restaurant and they sell Doge because there's a whole Doge community.
Sure.
Like there's a lot of people who really like Doge. And so maybe they just accept that as their payment, but then they also convert a lot of it to Bitcoin every month. They actually store their value behind the scenes in Bitcoin, but they're transacting with Doge because, it's part of the brand. It's also very cheap and quick to use. like things like that. That would be kind of my argument. I know it's kind of niche there,
Mm-hmm.
but that's why I say that there could be use cases
Sure.
in the future. It's just,
Okay.
I agree with you. Like I would accept Bitcoin. I'd rather build a brand and everything around Bitcoin, but there's other communities out there.
Yeah, and I do agree with you there with like community aspect and like that being a use case. But that's incredibly niche as well, like in the big scheme of things.
Yeah.
So that means the market is very small, which means the ability to really make
Store
any
value.
sort of store of value or exactly is very small in there. And then the other use cases I think will just be developed on different layers of Bitcoin for all these other ones that have some sort of like semblance of idea of having some sort of utility. I think that's just going to come to Bitcoin in some way, right? Like, it might be far off, but even Tether talked about having stable coins on Lightning, right? It's like, well, all these people are talking about ETH, and right now, especially and the ETH went way up because of the Genius Act in part, and
Right.
it's because a lot of the tokens are minted on the ERC20. It's like, well, what happens when that all moves to Lightning, right? Like that use case is gone and it's actually gone over to Bitcoin. So I don't know. I just see that all these, people, well, the people that are shilling their altcoins will say, oh, Bitcoin was like the first and it's the test coin for like this better technology we've developed. But I actually see it the complete other way around. I see all these altcoins as test nets to what technology can be built on top of Bitcoin, not integrated necessarily in Bitcoin on layer one, but built on top of it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that for the first 16 years of Bitcoin, like the main thing was to make sure that this network is secure, because that's the base layer of everything. That's the foundation. If the foundation of Bitcoin was broken, then none of this works. I mean, even a couple of years ago, the Lightning Network didn't exist, right? So we're 16 years into it. I agree with Forrest there. Like these layers are going to be built on top of Bitcoin. That's where we'll go to. And that's why I don't think that you should be storing your value in anything other than Bitcoin right now.
Yeah.
Number 7 here. I thought this was interesting, Rajat. Buy stocks with the money you can afford to lose. Oh,
You're muted.
Yeah, so sorry about that. Yeah, you're taking a lot more risk when you buy stocks. There's an executive, there's a product that they're selling most likely. Maybe MicroStrategy is a little bit different from the typical stock, but I mean the way that I see it, if you're willing to give away money if you want to store your value, you buy Bitcoin. If you want to invest, you buy stocks. Store of value is just something that has no with Bitcoin. I know a lot of people may disagree with this. There's very, very, very little risk. Like there's things that maybe we don't know could happen. Like you don't know what you don't know. Maybe there's like a 0.0001% chance of something happening that we don't understand. Maybe some kind of code exploit. I don't know what could happen. Nobody knows, right? But you can't really say what's going to happen with stocks either. How do you know that some exec is not going to come out with some crazy opinion, some radical opinion that makes people think that, oh, this company is terrible? And we saw that happening with Starbucks, right? When not too long ago, Starbucks stock dropped like 50% because of people's opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. With Bitcoin, the opinions don't matter, right? It's a free market. There really is no opinion because Bitcoin is truly neutral, while stocks are not.
I would also just say that price is a way of like, like a market cap of a company versus like the market cap or the price of Bitcoin. Like these are ways that a lot of information is like put into the price, and the price is like reflective of what something is worth to some degree. But that doesn't mean what I'm trying to get at here is that like even if the price of Bitcoin goes way down in fiat terms, that doesn't mean that Bitcoin is more risky because nothing fundamentally has changed with Bitcoin, right? It's just a current market idea of what Bitcoin is worth. And that will shift and stuff. But things can actually happen to companies, right? An executive can get fired. They can make a change that loses them a bunch of capital, right? And their business is built on capital, and therefore then they're less competitive against their competitors, and their competitors eat their market share away. All these things are fundamental risks to the companies actually going out of business. Bitcoin, again, Rajat said there might be some crazy thing that happens, some black swan that we don't know about with the code or something like that. It is software at the end of the day, but it's a very, very slim chance that it stops working completely, that it doesn't do what it says it's going to do. Whereas, you know, you can look at the average of how long a company lasts for. It's, you know, I don't know exactly how long, but it's years, right? Like it's, you know, there is an average. A lot of these businesses do go under, even public companies, even giant companies. Like things happen because of all of the additional risks. It's not just software protocol that runs.
Yeah, I think Saylor does a really good job of talking about the risks of holding equities in companies and what that entails. So he's given several presentations in the last couple of years talking about these risks that Forrest was talking about. Like, you know, even something as stupid as like a golf course, you know, the weather, a hurricane, a tornado ripping through there. Like that's an issue. The weather's an issue for companies, right? The weather has no impact on Bitcoin because even if a whole Bitcoin mine got blown up or wrapped up in a tornado, that has zero impact on the network. I mean, I shouldn't say zero, but pretty much zero, right? So yeah, I completely agree with that. I don't want to spend too much time talking about stocks. I think that if you do have any free cash flow, you should just be putting into Bitcoin. So this isn't a S&P 500 show. Although shout out to Block, another Bitcoin company snaking into the S&P 500. We're going to be seeing the BTC 5 instead of the S&P 500, I think, here soon.
Yeah. Shout out to Block.
Shout out to Block. Next one here. Bitcoin is saving. I think we can kind of skip over this one because this is similar in my mind to the buy Bitcoin with the extra fiat. We talked about it being a savings account. Number 9 here is hold for 4 years. Hold through at least one Bitcoin cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I said that one is because if you take a look at the 4-year average moving price of Bitcoin, do you mind just sharing my screen there, Jor? If you look at the 4-year average moving price of Bitcoin, so there's 2 things here, right? You see the colorful dots there that are going up and coming down, and then you see this line. So the colorful dots are basically the daily price, and the way that I see it, these colorful dots are a distraction. The only thing that you really need to focus on, the only thing that you need to focus on is the line at the bottom.
Is that the moving average?
This is the 4-year moving average, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So how this works, actually, a lot of people don't know how the 4-year moving average works. So what it is basically it's the last 4 years worth of closing prices, and then the price is averaged. So as new data is added, the 1,459th day. So if you go back in time, the 1,459th day is going to be dropped off, and then the newest date is going to be added on. So what you see here is this is the price plus the noise,
Mm-hmm.
but let's get rid of the noise. Let's see what happens to the price.
It levels out all the volatility when you look at this chart.
Right? This is the price of Bitcoin. This is what you're buying. When you buy Bitcoin with a 4-year time horizon, this is what you're getting exposure to. When you buy Bitcoin with a daily exposure, this is what you're when you buy Bitcoin with a daily time, like a 1-day time horizon, this is what you're getting exposure to, right? So you can play whatever game you want to. If you want to play the long-term game, you buy Bitcoin for 4 years and hold. If you want to gamble and play the short-term game, this is what you're battling against, and you're facing tons of bots who are probably better at trading in and out than you are.
Yeah.
I think that's I mean, that was one of the early kind of, I don't know, points that I made to people when I'm helping people with Bitcoin is like, you have to kind of go into this with the right mindset, and you want to be here for at least 4 years. If you can go into it with that, you're not going to get wrapped up in the colorful dots, the distractions, the news cycle. It's like you just buy this thing, you hold it for at least 4 years. And then I usually tell people to reevaluate then. But by the time those 4 years have passed, they probably spent 4 years learning about Bitcoin. And therefore, they have more conviction. They have more knowledge about what this asset is. They're much less likely to trade it for fiat after spending 4 years in Bitcoin. So you're not only compounding your financial gains here, but you're compounding your knowledge and your conviction within Bitcoin. And to me, those are the 2 most important things.
Absolutely.
The next one here, interested to hear this one. Don't take profits. Number 11, don't take profits.
I think it comes back to that that chart there. If you're looking at it on the daily, you might think, oh, well, there's a high, there's a low, I can sell, I can buy, but you're competing, like, out of 100 people, you're one of them. And I would say 98 of those other people probably have more information than you if they're trading and you're new to trading, right? So you're probably going to get wrecked. And the thing is with trading, this is what I've learned about trading, because I started trading when I first got into like investing. I was actively trading. What can happen is you find a strategy that works. You make a few trades, you scalp a little bit of money, you do some swing trades, you make a little bit of money, a little bit of profits. And then you're tired one day, or you're just off, or you're not paying attention, and you make a mistake and you lose everything that you've gained. It gives you that false sense of like, oh, I can do this, and then you get wrecked. And if you don't have the downside protection and all of the additional knowledge that you need to have, you'll make one mistake and you'll lose everything that you've gained. So it's much easier to just buy and hold, and you can do that with this asset.
Yeah, Lisa, actually, this is perfect timing, because she said, can you sell to USDT? I think that's what she meant, USDT. Or sorry, yeah, that's right, USDT.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually what I was going to say here, because I have a kind of a different opinion on that. And this is kind of what I'm planning to do myself, is I want to sell like a very small portion of my Bitcoin for USDT, but it's going to be at a certain price point. And I kind of have this planned out in my head already, because I think that we are probably going to see a dip. And for somebody like me who stores 100% of my money in Bitcoin, if that starts going down, if it's like my checking account, savings account is different than a checking account, right? If you're looking at Bitcoin as a savings account and that's all you have it for, you kind of live in fiat and, have some emergency funds as backup, that's a different story. Mm-hmm. Bitcoin to me is a checking account. And so I do plan on taking like a very, very small percentage of my Bitcoin. Let's say we get to $200,000 Bitcoin. I'm actually going to sell some to buy some USDT that I can pay for my living expenses for the next year if we see a crash. So I'm still going to take some profits, as they say, but it's because I live on Bitcoin. It's because it's my checking account. This is a totally different answer for somebody who has Bitcoin as a savings account.
I think that's interesting. And, for me, I'm looking at these cycles, and I think the reason we have crashes is because we have a massive move to the upside, and we haven't really necessarily had that. So I'm only convinced that we're going to have some semblance of a crash if we see a massive move to the upside. So, but anyway, and you might want to look at STRC. Very, very interesting product, Jor.
Is that their newest one?
Yeah, it's basically a financial, like, TradFi stable coin that pays you 9%. Incredibly interesting.
Built on Bitcoin.
Yeah, all backed by Bitcoin instead of treasuries.
That's interesting.
It's very, very, very interesting. That's
why I also like USDT in this case, because Tether's actually backed by 100,000 Bitcoin. Like they might have 200,000 Bitcoin actually, but anyways, part of their currency is actually backed by gold and Bitcoin. But yeah,
they're businesses. But if they come on board to the Genius Act, all of their stablecoin issuance will have to be backed by treasuries, not by Bitcoin.
Really?
Yes, that's part of the stipulation of the Genius Act.
I didn't know that.
They could still hold it on their balance sheet, Bitcoin, right? But their stable coin is actually backed 1-to-1, regulated way.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's brutal.
Yeah, that is kind of brutal.
They're just trying to create demand for treasuries, right? That's the goal.
100%. Yeah.
Which is kind of smart, but it's shitty for the world.
Yeah, that's a whole nother debate.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple different things here. We got we're coming to an end here in the next. We'll probably take 5 more minutes, maybe. But big shout out to we got Letha's over in Zapstream. We got MIX Mix over there. Plunger sent 1,000 sats over on Zapstream, and somebody just sent in a row of ducks, 2,222 sats from Duncan. Said Duncan's row of ducks. Can't believe I made the show.
Took me a second. Row of ducks. I didn't visualize that.
So that's thanks everybody for the zaps. Forrest, did you have something you want to mention there?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention we're going to be ending the show very soon and going over to the school community. For anybody that hasn't already heard our pitch and what we're doing here, we're doing another hour of live streaming, but a live stream that you can actually join with your audio, with your camera if you wanted, and ask us questions directly and actually get your questions answered. Because we can't answer all the questions here on this chat. And you can join that by joining our school community, which has much more than just that. But every week we do what we call the Maple Bitcoin Happy Hour, which is happening in a few minutes.
The first one today.
Rajat, you're on mute.
I was going to say, yeah, our first one.
CDL, I started this one because I want to just briefly talk about this. So we actually did a masterclass, Forrest, Rajat, and myself. We spent 45 minutes. It might feel like 45 hours to some people, but it was 45 minutes. We were talking about this exact same thing. 2 of our master classes are actually how to properly buy Bitcoin. We spent an hour talking about that. And then the second one was how to keep it safe. Not just like what to buy, but it was like where to keep your Bitcoin and then where to keep your devices, your recovery phrase, your passphrase, different locations, how to be thinking about it. All of that stuff was in our master class that we did yesterday. So you actually get that as being a part of the Maple Bitcoin school community. So it looks like we had a couple people join since we started the stream today. So that's good news. Again, you can join a 7-day free trial. Come to the happy hour today, ask some questions, interact. And, if you don't like it, then cancel. Won't offend us at all. We think that you're going to be blown away by the amount of value in there on day one. And I mean, just kind of how I was thinking about this morning, Forrest, Rajat, and myself, we all do one-on-ones with people, and people pay decent amount of money to, ask us questions, get our opinions on things. But imagine having 3 of us in the same call with you that you have the ability to ask questions to for a very, very low rate overall compared to if you were to hire 3 of us and ask a question. You're getting about 98% off of there. So really good. It's a really good community. You're going to have access directly to us with this kind of stuff. So consider joining if you haven't yet. It's very easy to do. School.com/Maple Bitcoin. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. I've seen some of the ones that Rajat's done with his community, the one-on-one on Zoom. And I think that there's a ton of value there. So I think having the 3 of us with different perspectives, we should be able to answer any question that you have or point you in the right direction at least.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
So the last one before we go here is keep studying and leverage your knowledge. Last one.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
perfect tie into the Maple Bitcoin community.
That's true. Yeah.
If you keep learning, it'll give you more of an incentive to hold through the volatility. Right. That's the most important thing. If you like, one of the reasons why people don't want to buy Bitcoin is just there's like 10, actually there's again, another promotion for the community, but there's a book an ebook that I wrote. It's the 10 misconceptions of Bitcoin. And once you get through those 10 misconceptions, it becomes so much harder not to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You build conviction by learning. And it might lead you down paths in your employment, in your business that become more profitable, which allows you to stack more sats. I mean, this is Saylor says that you spend thousands of hours in your life working for money. You should spend 100 hours learning what is money. And when you do that, you start valuing things much differently, and it's going to all these other rules that we talked about are just going to make complete sense. You're not going to have to think, okay, I got to do rule 1, I got to do rule 2. If you just study Bitcoin, you're just naturally going to do all these other things because they all just make sense once you've studied it enough.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, one of the things we talk about in the school community is like, we're now living in an age of abundant information. Like you could literally ask AI any question any time of day, and you're going to get a very, very good answer to that. You don't have to pay for it even. There's already free models available that are better than any advice you could get from somebody else. Honestly, I use it every day. But the problem is that you don't know what questions to ask. That's the whole disconnect here. And that's what we try to do with this channel. That's what we try to do with the school community is fill those gaps, because then you're going to know what questions to ask. You have this unlimited amount of information at your fingertips. But being part of communities like this, joining live streams like you did today, It's going to give you the right questions to ask. And then with that at your disposal, you are unlimited. You are unstoppable. Truly, you're limitless. You have your Bitcoin as your economic power. You have your knowledge as your information. You combine those two, you add value, and you secure your Bitcoin, and you are going to truly be unstoppable. So don't think about this as like an expense. It's an investment. And our whole point with this community is that you should actually make more money than you spend every month on it, based on what we talk about, based on saving sats through the security tips that we give, and also referrals. If you refer 3 people to the community, it pays for your membership. So that's kind of what we want to do here. We want it to be a net positive for you in the long term, but it's an investment, not an expense for people. That's how I think about it anyways. So we're going to head over there right now. Oh, our website's not working? Working for me.
Yeah, Rajat got an advanced security notice. It's a new website, so maybe I'll have to...
I got it.
I might have to take a look on the back end and see.
Look at these guys.
There's 12 people on the Zoom already. This is awesome.
Oh, wow. Okay. We got to get over there, guys.
We got to get our shit together, I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there it is, maplebitcoin.xyz, or you can go to school.com/maplebitcoin if you want to join the call. It's going to be fun. You're going to learn a bit. You're going to have some fun. What else would you be doing on a Friday? Friday afternoon, other than hanging with us and talking about Bitcoin. So thanks, fellas. I know it was a bit abbreviated today, a bit of a late start, but what a great conversation. I think this is going to add a lot of value to people's lives out there today. So hope you join us. I know there's already been about 5 or 7 people join the school community and 140 more. So it's going to be a good time. So thanks, fellas. Thanks, everybody in the chat. Thank you for the zaps. I saw one came in for 8,888. I could think of a couple people who might have sent that. Josh, Letha, Daniel come to mind. But anyways, whoever it was, thank you. And we'll see everybody next week. Bye-bye.